தென்னாடுடைய பெரியவா போற்றி, எந்நாட்டவர்க்கும் இறைவா போற்றி. சர்வஜ்ஞா சர்வவ்யாபி பெரியவா சரணம். மாயப்பிறப்பருக்கும் மகாபெரியவா அடிபோற்றி. மாயப்பிறப்பருக்கும் மகாபெரியவா அடிபோற்றி. மாயப்பிறப்பருக்கும் மகா பெரியவா அடிபோற்றி.
Namaskaram, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. My salutations to all of Sri Maha-periyavā's devotees around the world. We welcome you all to week 3 of the talk series on Nadamadum Devam Shri Kanchi Maha-periyavā by Sangita Acharya, Thiruvaiyaru Shri Krishnan. In the past couple of weeks, the reasons for this proposed talk series, the first meeting with Maha-periyavā in 1954, and highlights of 1955 and 56, and the various introductions to many scholars and devotees was addressed. Maha-periyavā's Matrubhavam was detailed through his involvement with Sri Krishnan, his elder sister Bhuma, his father Brahmashri Kumaramangalam Srinivasa Raghavan, and others. The connections drawn with Andavan Pichai Maragatamma and other stalwarts of the time were also detailed, along with an introduction to the recordings of the Pada Darisana Malar or Acharya Pancharatnam. More of Sri Krishnan's experiences in 1956 and onwards will be shared today. I am most grateful to the Maha-periyavaa Mandali of Sacramento for extending Sri Krishnan's talk series from the 4-week series to an 8-part series. Our sincere and humble thanks for the same. The revised dates will soon be shared with all. Thank you. Maha-periyavā Sharanam.
Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Manojavam Marutatulya Vegam Jitendriyam Buddhimatam Varishtam Vatatmajam Vanarayuta Mukyam Shri Ramadutam Sirasa Namami. Nitanta Kanti Danta Kanti Manta Kanti Katmajam Achintya Rupa Mantagina Mantaraya Krintanam Kridantare Nirantaram Vasantameva Yoginam Tam Ekadantam Yevatam Vichintayami Santatam. Adi Shankara says in his Ganesha Pancharatnam, I constantly reflect upon the Ekadanta, single-tusked God, whose lustrous tusk is so beautiful and he is the son of Lord Shiva, and Lord Shiva is the god of destruction. And the single-tusked god has an elephant face, and the elephant-faced form is immortal and unknowable, even by the Vedas. He who destroys all obstacles and who dwells forever in the hearts of the yogis. Let us salute him to have this session going without any vigna. Namaskarams. I begin this third session with my salutations to Jagadguru Maha-periyavā and with my thanks to Maha-periyavā Mandali, Sri Panchabakeshan and Sri Anand for their continued support at all times. I also thank all of you who have tuned in to listen, and to those who have been very generous in your comments, wishes and blessings for the earlier sessions, and also comments asking for certain expansions and certain clarifications. That gives me a tremendous purpose. One of the main feedbacks was that I should sing at least one or two songs in the session, and if possible on Paramacharya. In deference to the wishes frequently expressed, I will begin with one such song from Acharya Pancharatnam, about which I'll give you the background later in this session, even though I spoke a little bit in an earlier session. Sharanam Shankara Gurube Edu Tarunam Karunai Purivai Gurube Sharanam Shankara Gurube Edu Tarunam Karunai Purivai Gurube Sharanam Shankara Gurube Edu Tarunam Karunai Purivai Sharanam Shankara Guruve Paramadaya Nidhiye Sadguruve Paramadaya Nidhiye Sadguruve Paramadaya Nidhiye Sadguruve Parama Pavana Padame Gadiyarule Charanam Shankara Guruve அறியாமை இருள் மூடி அருள் வழி மறைத்திட அறியாமை இருள் மூடி அருள் வழி மறைத்திட அந்த கண் போல் வீதில் அலைந்தயர்ந்தேனே வரியனுக்குயர் நீதி வழங்குதல் போல் என்னை வரியனுக்குயர் நீதி வழங்குதல் போல் என்னை வாவென அழைத்தருள் ஆமுதளி தீரே வாவென அழைத்தருள் ஆமுதளி தீரே சரணம் சங்கர குருவே ஏ சரணம் சங்கர குருவே கருணையின் இருப்பிடம் காஞ்சியில் குருபீடம் கருணையின் இருப்பிடம் காஞ்சியில் குருபீடம் கருணையின் இருப்பிடம் காஞ்சியில் குருபீடம் கவலையெல்லாம் போக்கும் கற்பக பூந்தோட்டம் கவலையெல்லாம் போக்கும் கற்பக பூந்தோட்டம் வருமடியார்கருள் வழங்கிடும் கண்ணோட்டம் வருமடியார்கருள் வழங்கிடும் கண்ணோட்டம் வணங்குமடியார்க்கெல்லாம் வாழ்க்கையில் புது நாட்டம் வணங்கும்படியார்க்கெல்லாம் வாழ்க்கையில் புது நாட்டம் சாரணம் சங்கர குருவே இது தருணம் கருணை புரிவு சத்குருவே தருணம் இது கருணை புரிவாய். Paramacharya. I mentioned in my last session about Periyava's introduction to the family of publisher Sri P.T. Pani Mama and how we got close soon after that meeting. We took permission from Periyava and joined P.T. Pani Mama's Arupadai Vidi Yatra in the summer of 1957. When my father also included Sri Adi Seshayar in the tour, about whom I will be saying a few words as we progress. In addition to the 6 famous Padai Vidugal of Subramanya Swami, we also visited another 50 to 60 Divya Kshetrams, including Vaishnava Divya Tirupadigal and famous temples of Shiva and Shaktam. And my sister and I had the privilege of singing wherever we went, and in every Garbhagraham, we had the blessings of Periyava practically for every Gurukul or Bhattar allowing us to sing in praise of the Lord. That was the earliest experience of youngsters like me getting closer to the Archavataram, about which I have spoken a number of times in several pravachanams, including Srimad Bhagavatam. The very first orientation should be through Archavataram in order to reach the Brahman. That came so handy when I was hardly 11 years old, thanks to Periyava. After our summer tour, Appa took us to Kanchipuram to seek blessings from Periyava and submit many of the compositions, which he ended up doing as Asukavi, impromptu outpouring in sanctums of many temples wherever we visited. That is when we got the great news that Periyava would be camping in Madras around Navaratri, or Dasara holidays we call. But very soon we heard the news likely changed. It became the greatest news that Periyava's stay in Madras was likely to be for a couple of years, almost non-stop, not just like Chaturmasyam stop like 4 months or so. Almost from September of 1957 to late 1959. That was also the best of my years in my life, tuning my approach to material compulsions, availabilities in life, adequacy, and feeling content with whatever I could get, not only then, but in the rest of my life, or any other conveniences or lack thereof in daily life. Appa went to Kanchipuram again and returned with the itinerary that Paramacharya would be in Madras on the day of commencement of Dakshinayana Punyakalam in September of 1957, and that Sanskrit College has been chosen at their request as the place of stay. So a huge pandal was erected and the college was arranging to receive him. And host him with special accommodation for thousands of devotees to visit daily, because that was something like a boon. And they were also trying to comprehend the magnitude of how they are going to handle. The family could sense that my father was excited. Since through my mother Ambujamma's side, we were related to the founder family that owned the newspaper, The Hindu, in that era, not now. Our family was one of those select few who received special invitation to the reception for Paramacharya at the farmhouse of Kasturi Srinivasa. That's the first place where he came for Bhiksha. Chakravarti Rajagopalacharya Rajaji was one of the distinguished guests at the time to receive Paramacharya. Incidentally, many of you may know he was the first Indian Governor General, and he was also the Chief Minister of Madras hardly a year or so before this event happened. Incidentally, Rajaji was related to us through my mother's side. We all proceeded on a procession to Chancery College right from the farmhouse that night, and there a huge crowd was following. It was a sight that I can never forget. We felt an unusual feeling that the coming days may turn out to be eventful and very exciting. I was in my high school, a student of the Hindu high school, and usually wait for my father returning from his work. He was an accounts officer at the Madras Electricity Board, MEB as it was known. It was not a governmental body, it was an autonomous body in those years, which managed generation and distribution of electricity for the entire southern provinces then. We visited the evening puja to have darshanam of Maha-periyavā performing Sayankala Nityanushtana puja almost every other day, if not for 4 days in a week. Acharya Jayendra Saraswati Swami, who was inducted only a year earlier, used to help Paramacharya most of the times running errands, and also occasionally sitting on either side and doing puja with Periyava. It was the most beautiful way of Periyava transiting some of these Nitya Karmas to him so that he could be a global Acharya to heal the oppressed who come to him in thousands. Those were the special moments, as on many evenings my mother, sisters, and my little kid brother, Lakshmi Narasimhan, who had done all the Pancharatnam in his Ragasri channel so beautifully. Those of you who are interested, listen to those 5 songs in Ragasri channel. He was holding my hand and we'll walk to the Pandal. The spiritual togetherness as a sibling was so intense, and maybe that may be the reason for communicating with my brother, though accomplished even today with a lot of liberties and Vatsalyam, even though he is in his late 60s, himself a grandparent, etc. I didn't understand the significance at those times when it was happening to all of us, the whole family, except that it excited me to have an almost daily, if not 3-4 times a week, picnic to an exalted place with thousands of devotees in the Pandal. Lot of curiosity, lot of funfair, according to me, chanting and shouting, Jaya Jaya Shankara, Hara Hara Shankara. Tamil solluva, Purindum Puriyamalum solluva. I knew that it was a great moment, something to cherish spiritually. அந்த வார்த்தை ஸ்பிரிச்சுவலாவே சரியாவே அந்த வார்த்தையே சொல்ல தெரியாத வயசு, சரியா புரியல. ஆனா ஏதோ ஒரு அபூர்வமான சமாச்சாரம் நடந்துட்டு இருக்கு வாழ்க்கையில, அதுல நான் ஒரு பாத்திரமா இருக்கேங்கிறது நாள் கழிச்சு தான் தெரிய வந்தது. And I cannot translate it in English and bring the same emotion there. Not only in the history of the city of Madras that the period 57 to 1959 was an unforgettable chapter, thanks to Paramacharya's continuous stay in Madras after a quarter of a century. Millions of spiritual forays from all over India and many overseas countries witnessed a new wave of energy and spirituality in Madras, usually dominated in those years by the controversial nihilist and atheist movements, by one Karagam or the others bringing help like mushrooms. In my humble life, those 2 years were the finest in self-development and getting a glimpse of spiritual induction, all thanks to Maha-periyavā. It did not stop with spiritual induction alone. That's what I'm trying to say. And in the introduction, it was said, I felt the Matru-bhavam. As much I would feel comfortable with my mother, I was able to feel with Periyavā. Many times I had asked him stupid questions, behaved a little bit impertinent, but I never knew that was impertinence. But I think in standard format, that was not how people would expect one to go to Periyavā. But Periyavā completely absorbed my, I would say, impetuous behavior or curiosity to ask questions, like a mother would patiently listen. Those were the incidents, some of them which I'll be narrating. Most of those incidents may seem insignificant for most of humanity, for many of you who may be listening here, but they were the most poignant and fundamental as they started shaping me as a teenager to reinforce Vairagyam, to help manage several onstarts of life challenges. Almost major one, occasional setbacks and disappointments from when I was 18, that were to follow hardly within a few years of what I'm narrating in 1957. That's why the toughening that happens when one is young usually helps to shape up so as not to lose the goal, compass, or spiritual faith. Let me jump to October 15, 1957, very significant date in my life. In the last session, I made some passing mention about Andavan Pichai Marakatamma's compositions tuned in by my father. The one I sang in Hindolam today is one of the 5 gems at Pancharatnam and Paramacharya, which Marakatamma dedicated as Pada Darshana Malar in 1957. Paramacharya took her as disciple and blessed her from almost when she was a teenager, naming her Andavan Pichai, gift of God. Marakatamma lived for 91 years as per her biography, released through Sivananda Ashram in 1983 and rewritten or reiterated by David Godman in 2008, was a great devotee of Bhagavan Ramana from Ramanashram. When we visited Kanchipuram in 1957, Periyava introduced Marakatamma to my father. That was the first introduction. இவதான் மரகதம்மா, இதை பத்தி நிறைய சொல்லுவேன். இது ராகவன், இந்த குழந்தைகளுக்காலே ரொம்ப நல்லா பாடுவா, நீங்களே கேட்க போறேன். மரகதம்மா, ப்ளீஸ் ரிசைட் யுவர் லேட்டஸ்ட் கிரியேஷன். புதுசா பண்ணிருக்கீங்களே, அதை கொஞ்சம் ஹம் பண்ணி காட்டுங்கோ, இல்லை வார்த்தைகளாவது சொல்லுங்கோ. And looked at my father to say, Raghava, இதுக்கெல்லாம் நீயே ராகம் போட்டுரு, என்ன அம்மா கேட்டுட்டு இருந்தா. Then looking at Marakatamma, he asked, இப்ப சந்தோஷம் தானே? Marakatamma seemed extremely pleased and then started the great spiritual relationship with someone Acharya named the gift of God. That was a long association. The association was such, this was 1957. In 1980, when I took my wife and 3 children, Priya, Harani and Shubha, in 1980 we made a trip to Badri, but we went through Rishikesh primarily looking for Marakatamma because someone said that she has settled in Shivananda Ashram in Rishikesh. Amma receives all of us. The minute I say Bhuma Krishnan or Krishnan Bhuma and Raghavan Pulle, the next minute she shows such a knowledge of remembering all that. குழந்தை சௌக்கியமா இருக்காளா, வளாறு, ஓகே, இது உன் பாரியையா, அது குழந்தைகளா, அவ ஏதாவது பாடுவாளான். Then immediately they sang my father's composition, Shikanchipura in Karaharapriya. She was so pleased and she said, it is like good old times when you and your sister used to sing in front of Acharya. That was a blessing which my 3 children have never forgotten, even though 30 years have passed by. That is a relationship with Periyava Putta Pullayarshuri. My father was pleased to tune all those songs and also the 16 catchy tunes or ragams for the Acharya Shodashamala Stuti, which was also published in the same booklet by P.T. Pani. We sang them all to Acharya. Acharya called P.T. Panimama, the famous publisher of spiritual book, to help print the Pancharatnam and Shodashamala for free distribution to genuine music lovers who are into spiritual and devotional music. Paniyar, இந்த புஸ்தகத்தை print பண்ணி ஃப்ரீயா விநியோகம் பண்ணுவா, ஜனங்கள் பயன்படட்டும். Immediately Panimama obliged. It was Periyava's grace that Chief Justice of Madras High Court, Chief Justice of Travancore High Court, who actually came from Travancore to settle down in Madras, Sri T.M. Krishnasamy Iyer, was visiting Periyava on that very day of our, I would say, debut of those Pancharatnams. After we finished singing, Periyava asked the manager to bring some coins with Tripura Sundari Ambal on one side and Chandramouli Iswara on the other side. And those coins and fruits, that was my birthday also. Both Janma Nakshatram and Anglican calendar. Periyava did a special wish. And then he said, okay, he got a shawl which somebody had given him, a very expensive shawl that Periva just adorned it for a few seconds just to please them, took it out, handed it to my father and said, Raghava, குழந்தைக்கு போத்தி விடு, இன்னைக்கு அவனுக்கு பிறந்த நாள்டா. After offering prasadams to Margathamma, my sister and father, Periva called Justice T.M.K. Iyer and introduced my father to Thiruvaiyaru. That's how we used to call Tirupur Mani Mama, and the entire Prapancham was calling him like that. Periyava continued, Ardharima, then so that I do not break the interesting anecdote, let me complete the entire conversation in Tamil and summarize in English a bit later in deference to non-Tamil speaking devotees, because if I break them and start translating, it'll be like one of those moor market sale. So let me not make you disinterested in that. I'll complete at least in Tamil. He calls TMK here, Jajwal, இந்த குழந்தைகள் ரொம்ப தெய்வாம்சமா பாடினாலே யாரு தெரியுமா? இந்த குழந்தைகள் இவனுடைய குழந்தைகள். அந்த பாட்டெல்லாம் எழுதுனது உம்ம சிஷ்ய மரகத்தம்மா. அவா கவனங்கள் அதுக்கு மெட்டு போட்டது இவன் பேர் ராகவன் பேரு, சீனிவாச ராகவன் முழுக்க பேரு. அவனே நிறைய பாட்டு தமிழ்ல போட்டிருக்கான். குழந்தைகள் திருப்புகழ் உச்சாரணை சுத்தமா பாடுவா. நீர் தப்பாம உம்ம கோஷ்டியில சேர்த்துக்கோங்க. இப்ப வரையும் இங்க இருந்தாரு உம்ம கோஷ்டி ஆசாமி தண்டபாணி ஐயர், பிடி பாணி ஐயர். அவரை காணிங்க எங்கேயோ தேடிட்டு இருக்கேன். அவர் ராகவனோட ஃப்ரெண்ட் இல்லையா? எப்படி இதுவரையில நீங்க சந்திக்காம இருந்தேன்னு ஆச்சரியமா இருக்கு. Then Periva looked around. Many devotees were attentively looking at him with reverence. Then he turned to my father and he was addressing TMK Iyer, showing my father, இவன் காந்தி சொல்லி இங்கிலீஷ்காரோட சேர்ந்து ஏர்ஃபோர்ஸ்ல யுத்தம் முடிகிற வரை பெரிய ஆபீசரா இருந்துட்டு பிளேன் எல்லாம் ஓட்டிட்டு இப்ப எலக்ட்ரிசிட்டியில அப்படித்தானே ராகவா அங்கதானே வேலை பார்க்கிற? அப்பா அமைதியா தலையாட்டினார். Since Maha-periyavā was in Southers, Appa simply bent and offered salutations to TMK, since no one would be prostrating to anybody else when Periyavā was in attendance. That was actually a Southern ayam. Basically, to summarize what happened, he was addressing the judge that the children who sang all those songs were written by Margathamma, who happened to be TMK Iyer's disciple in Tiruppugal. And he addressed my father and gave him a little bit of background as to what he was and then what he is now. And then he again turns to Appa and says, Thiruvankurla, your chief justice இருந்தார். அப்போ சுதந்திரத்திற்கு அப்புறம் அவர் இங்க வந்துட்டார். எல்லாருக்கும் தெரியும். மெட்ராஸ்ல இவர் ரொம்ப அழகா ஒரு வீடு கட்டியிருக்காரு. அதுல திருப்புகழ்ல என்ன பிரமாதமா பாடுறான்னா ஒரு பிரம்மாண்டமான ஹால் இருக்கு. அங்க போகணும் நீங்க எல்லாரும். ஆனா இவரை நான் முதல்ல எப்ப பார்த்தேன்னு தெரியுமா? ஜட்ஜ்வால் நீரே சொல்லும் 30 வருஷம் இருக்குமா? Then it was Justice TMK's turn to complete the rest of the story with great fervor and reverence. I had too many questions when the Sambhashana was going on. Like a cashew nut, I wanted to ask, but I was just given some signal to shut my mouth. And after that meeting, luckily, my father was in a great mood. On our way home, he filled up the blanks, helpful for me to scribble in my notebook because I have started my diary already. This is the summary of what Thiruvaiyaru said, and later my father augmented some of the additional facts. Thiruvaiyaru was in Palghat and Periyavā went to Thiruvaiyaru in 30 years. Some 30 years earlier, at the invitation of the Koil Devaswam. I'm talking this was happening in 57, probably some 29-30 years ago. He went near Guruvayur. He didn't go exactly to Guruvayur, but Thiruvaiyaru was in Palghat. So, first, Periyavā goes to Guruvayur because he was specially invited by the Devaswam board, Koil Devaswam board, for Bhiksha and special Maryada, very unusual. And at the special invitation of Kozhikode Maharaja, that's Calicut today. The Maharaja was then known as Samudri of Kozhikode. Those who have been from that part of the world, you will know, Samudri was actually the hereditary Raja of the province. Samudri became translated as Zamorin in English and Samorim in Portuguese, because Portuguese used to dominate those areas for a pretty long time, for centuries. When Periyavā arrived and camped in Pallavur, that was the camp which he did right from Guruvayur, not too far from Palghat. maybe about 20 miles, Tirupur Mani Iyer came to know that Periyava was there. So he was camping at Palghat but rushed with his entire bhajan party to Pallavur and rendered several Tirupugal in front of Periyava to his delight. And that was the time when Periyava blessed Justice T.M. Krishnaswamy with the title Tirupugal Mani. And then in his own inimitable smile, குழந்தை மாதிரி சிரிச்சுட்டு பெரியவா சொல்றார், இனிமேலிருந்து T.M. கிருஷ்ணசாமியர்னு சொன்னா திருப்புகழ் மணி கிருஷ்ணசாமின்னு வச்சுக்கலாம். I mean, that's how he became T.M. means Tirupugal Mani. And this is again the sense of humor of Periyava, how he could make a very profoundly serious thing, a very laudable thing into something at a level that all of us can appreciate and enjoy. இந்த இறுக்கத்திலிருந்து விளக்கறதுக்காக ஒரு சகஜ பாவத்தோட இப்போல இருந்து டிஎம் அப்படின்னே வச்சுடலாம். டிஎம்னா திருப்புகழ் மணி, அப்படித்தானே? அப்புறம் ஜட்ஜ்வால் நீர் திருவாடி தானே பூர்வீகம்? That is the next question. The justice smiled and nodded his head affirmatively. ராகவா, திருவையாருக்கு இன்னொரு பேர் திருவாடின்னு சொல்லுவோம், அவனுக்கு தெரியுமோ இல்லையோ? ஆமா, நீ குமாரமங்கலம், உன் பாரிய திருவையார் இல்லையோ? This is how he talks. I used to wonder whether someone can know and remember everyone and everything about whoever meets him at any point of his life. My childish admiration for Periyava, we used to call him Periyava Tata, became an inexplicable awe as I did not know then what that feeling was. On our way back, our father was mostly silent, but smiling and in great mood. Having been introduced, especially his children introduced to more and more spiritual and famous people, in fact, who is who of the spiritual and musical elite. Very soon, my father, Thirupugalappa, P.T. Panimama, Adiseshar, who later was blessed with the title Ishaimani by same Thirupugalappa, were all in close group. Being an active disciple of Vallimalai Sachidananda Swamigal, Thirupugalappa took us, introduced my father, and we went as coattails to Vallimalai Swamigal, and we all joined from then on the annual Tirutani Padivila, where the first Padi, Vallimalai Swamigal will do the inauguration with the Kalpuram, then Thirupugalappa, that was the tradition. And throughout the night, we will be climbing and singing one Thirupugal for each Tirupadi, and then we will go. By 6 a.m., we will be up on Tirutani mountain by the 1st of January the next year. That was the 12 hours is a remarkable time that everybody used to feel excited about. Padi Tiruvizha used to be a very, very big thing in those years. Thirupugalappa was a disciple of the other Chandrasekhara Bharati of Sringeri Mutt and Swami Sivananda, Vallimalai Swamigal. Every one of them conferred one title or the other. Vallimalai Swamigal conferred Thirupugal Jyoti title. Another person on Thirupugalappa. I suddenly cannot bring up as to what the title was conferred by Swami Sivananda. While the first Indian Governor General of India, whom I said just a while ago, Sri Rajaji, used to call Thirupugalappa even in public Vellavesti Sannyasi. That used to be the circuit in those years. Vellavesti Sannyasi means that will only point out to Thirupugalappa. We all called him Appa. My father's friendship with Thirupugalappa gave us great acquaintances. Thirupugalappa was actually the maternal uncle of Rukmini Devi of Kalakshetra. So he took us to Kalakshetra. My sister would recollect, in the months that followed the first meeting, we were all taken to Rukmini Devi Arundel, who was a member of parliament then, of Rajya Sabha also. Appa always used to say that God knows when to give, through whom to give, and what to give. He literally believed that God will never come and see us because God sent Periyava for that opening and how to handle tensions. And very soon I will be talking to you a very major tension. One such important lesson we all knew was that Bhagavan took hold of our lives in the form of Periyava. Many times Periyava used to summon my father with a hand wave and smile, and we all felt as if we were VIPs. Quite often we had the privilege of singing a song or two when the Alankaram went on. Appa would prepare us with compositions, including his own, and when those compositions were sung, Periva would look at Appa with an approving smile. And Appa would close, that's my father. Here I'm calling Appa my father, would close his eyes to hide his emotion or ecstasy. This routine used to continue at least weekly twice, if not 3-4 times, more so towards weekends. By this time, I've learned to take the transport bus number 12 from Triplicane to Mylapore and very promptly go to puja on my own and return before the last bus. A week before Margari or so, I went to him quite early, late afternoon and was waiting to go. Usually I go by the evening, but that day somehow I went in the afternoon. I was waiting to go to the hut-like structure which used to be there right at the back. Really, they have done a thatched hut at the request of Periva. He never used to be in the main structure with all the fancy stuff. At the back, there used to be a bhavi, that is the canal. Well, by the side of that, there used to be a hut-like structure. That is the special quarters of Acharya. And there will be a kite kettle, but rarely Periva used that kettle. He used to lie down on the floor on a korapai. And there is something like, அதுக்கு மேல ஒரு வஸ்திரம், அவருடைய ஒன்னாதி காவி வஸ்திரம் இருக்கும். I knew his routine by then, and that he would take his evening shower and get ready for the puja. The manager of the mutt was a very strict old man, as I said, and I had never seen him smiling. He controlled all visitors virtually, and I was hoping that I can somehow peek to show my face to Acharya, and then I knew that he will call me. Lo and behold, immediately Periva turned his head and she said, come. But I was hesitant. I couldn't go because actually manager was like an Andikeshwara. My prayers were answered. Then he looked at mutt manager with a smile. Ayarwal, and the paina ulla or varacholungo. பாவம் அவன் பாட்டுக்கு ஒரே வேர்த்து விறுவிறுத்து நின்றுட்டு இருக்கான். ஏதோ ரொம்ப சந்தோஷமான சமாச்சாரம் உள்ள விடுங்கோ. So with his trademark smile, Periva asked me, என்ன ரொம்ப நேரமா காலை மாத்தி மாத்தி வச்சு ஏதோ டான்ஸ் ஆடுற அவஸ்தைப்படுறியே, என்ன சந்தோஷமான சமாச்சாரமா? By now, Appa has taught me how to stand and address with my mouth covered, etc. But I blurted out. ஆமாம், பெரியவா அனுகிரகத்துல பார்சாதி கோயில் திருப்பாவை போட்டியில கலந்துக்கலாம்னு ஆசை. பேர் கொடுக்கறதுக்கு முன்னாடி பெரியவா கிட்டக்க உத்தரவு ஆசீர்வாதம் வாங்கிடுவான்னு அப்பா சொன்னார். To sum up, my father sent me to get your blessings and confirmation or approval that I can go and participate in Parsadi Koil annual Thirupava Poti competition. அவருக்கு அப்பாவுக்கு உடம்பு கொஞ்சம் சுகமா இல்லை, அதனால நான் மட்டும் வந்தேன். உடனே நெக்ஸ்ட் திங் பெரியவாஸ், ஒரு ஜலதோஷம் ஜுரம் தானே, மற்றபடி ஒழுங்கா இருக்கானோ இல்லையோ, சௌக்கியமா இருக்கான் இல்லையா? ஆமா, பிரதோஷ குங்குமம் பிரசாதம் வாங்கிட்டு வான்னு சொன்னார். Before I concluded the statement, he gave me the prasadam right then and said, okay, கொண்டு போய் கொடு, சரியா படும், பேஷா கலந்துக்கோ, ஆனா பிரைஸ் வாங்கணுங்கிறதுக்காக பாடாதே. அப்ப ஏமாத்தம் தான் வரும். பிரைஸ் வாங்கணுங்கிறதுக்கு பாடலைன்னு சொன்னா அந்த அனுபவமே ஆனந்தம் தான். அதனால வாழ்க்கையில எதுவுமே எனக்கு இது கிடைக்கணும்னு முயற்சி பண்ணி ஒரு காரியம் பண்ணேன்னா அது அவ்வளவு ஈஸியா கிடைக்காது. கிடைக்கும், ஆனா அவ்வளவு ஈஸியா கிடைக்காது. ஆக பிரைஸ் வாங்கறதுக்காக பாடாது. விஷயம் தெரிஞ்சவா கிட்டக்க நிறைய ஆசீர்வாதம் வேணும். அதனால போய் பாடு, எல்லாரையும் பாரு, கேளு, அந்த பார்சாதி ஆண்டாள்லாம் பார்த்துக்கோடா. ஓ, this was his blessings. And according to previous words, it was actually Vedavaka. I got the prize by God's grace and Periva's grace. Appa was standing at the podium along with me when the chief judge, Ariyapudi Ramanjangar, handed over the prize, a silver cup, a shawl from Parsadi Perumal that was adorning Perumal. That was the first prize usually. And also a small cash prize with his inimitable laughter. When I just went to Ariyapudi Mama, he says, Bale Ambi, நீ பாப்பா குட்டி பையனா? பஷ், நான் போட்ட ராகத்துல ஏதாவது எப்போவாவது ஒரு பாட்டையாவது பாடுவியா, இல்லை எல்லாமே பாப்பா குட்டி போட்டது தானா? In other words, Ariyapudi Mama was asking, would you ever sing one Tirupavai in the ragams that I have propagated, or you are always actually singing all the Tirupavai in your father's ragams? Because he knew Appa and that he had also put Tirupava ragams. because that set of ragams are completely unique. Then, as usual, I was smiling and no answer. And then he says, okay, the Kirivanam Badiniye, or Ananda Periviya, Avavendula Uru, Arya Briga Potabar, Sabash. So that was his blessings from Ariyakudi. Next morning, I ran to Periyava to report the exciting news. I did not even open my mouth. By the time I could enter, again, he just beckoned and said, Enna prize kuchitala, Bayellam Pallarke, Yarallan Judge, Aingar Swami Dana, Vadakambola Chief Judge. All this is Periva. I don't even have to talk. I blabbered a lot in excitement, which he listened to patiently and smiled. Sari, Appa Vodum Tevlia, Sandoshandane. I started again like a train without a break. Some 8 years later, when I met him in a somber mood, while I was waiting for his darshanam, I was mulling over how impatient, chatterbox, and impish I used to be on all those occasions, and what came over me to behave like that quirky boy, what I did in front of a Jagadguru whom people from all over the world stood in line to meet for a couple of minutes. But that did not come to my mind until I was beaten up, and then I had a very somber reason to go and meet with him in 1965. I was just comparing notes of my earlier years while waiting for Periva's darshanam. Numerous visits followed in the first 4 months of 1958, one of the most important years of my adolescent life. We took permission and blessings from Periva in early May before starting our second Arubadai Vidiyatra when Periva made a remark, Raghava, நீ குழந்தையும் அழிச்சுண்டு இந்த யாத்திரையெல்லாம் நல்லபடியா முடிச்சுக்கோ, என்னை பாரு, குழந்தைகளை நன்னா பார்த்துக்கோ, வரப்போ கிருஷ்ணனையும் அழிச்சுண்டு வா, திரும்பி என்னை பாரு. A bit different this time. So many times you have taken permission, he used to simply smile and wave and then send us off. This time it was a very special address saying, come and meet me. I followed my father. We were the only two during that urgent visit, and my father was a bit nervous. Periva was taking rest, but sat up and looked at Appa. Enna, Payaluku Brahmovadesham pandra idea vandurtha. This is how Periva started as soon as we entered. My father was more nervous and felt guilty. Before we went for the yatra, Appa சொல்ற, my father was saying, யாத்திரை கிளம்புறதுக்கு முன்னாடி இவனோட தாத்தா, கிருஷ்ணனோட தாத்தா வார்த்தை சொல்லி அனுப்பிச்சார். He sent word to me through one of my brothers, that is எங்க அப்பாவுடைய brothers. Somebody brought the message from my grandfather to my father with a question whether Appa had any idea of doing Upanayanam for Krishnan in the near future. That was in Tamil. Appa continued. I said to, நான் சொல்லி அனுப்பிச்சேன் என் தம்பி சொன்னவன்ட்டுங்க, தட் அதை பற்றி நான் இன்னும் நினைக்கல, அதை திங்க் பண்ண ஆரம்பிக்கிறேன், நினைக்க ஆரம்பிக்கிறேன், அப்புறம் முடிவானதுக்கப்புறம் நான் அவரை பார்க்குறேன்னு சொல்லுவேன். And then Appa continued when Periva was listening, he didn't interrupt. He said, நாங்கள் ஸ்ரீரங்கம் போயிருந்த போது ஆறுபடை வீடு யாத்திரை போது அகஸ்மாத்தான் அங்கே நாங்கள் ஆண்டவன் சுவாமிகளை ஸ்ரீரங்கம் டெம்பிள்ல பார்த்தோம். ஏன்னா அவருக்கு அங்க மரியாதை பண்ணிட்டு இருந்தா. Acharya Swamigal spoke with me for some time. I'm translating in English for the benefit of others. உடனே Periva stopped and said, ஆண்டவன் சுவாமினா தெம்பரை ஆண்டவன் தானே? He said, தெம்பரை ஆண்டவன் தானே? ஆக்கூர் ஆண்டவன் இருந்தாரே, அவர் பட்டத்துல இருக்கிறச்சே ஒரு மாமாங்க இருக்கும் நினைக்கிறேன், ஒரு 12 வருஷம். அப்ப அவளுன்னா தை மாசம் அப்படின்னு நினைக்கிறேன், தெம்பரையார் சின்னவன் ஆண்டதா இருக்குச்சே, ஆக்கூராரையும் தெம்பரையாரையும் 2 பேரும் கும்போணத்துல சந்திச்சேன். ரொம்ப சௌக்கியமான சந்திப்பு. சரி, என்ன சொன்னார் ஆண்டவன் சுவாமி? My father continued. My father visited him a fortnight earlier. Apparently was talking about Brahmopadesham for the eldest son of his eldest son. That's me. My father was the eldest of 12 and I was the eldest for my father, eldest son. இவனுக்கு பிரம்மோபதேசத்தை பத்தி ஆண்டவன்கிட்ட போய் பேசியிருக்கார். I have no idea, எனக்கு அதை பத்தி ஒன்றும் தெரியாது, ஏன்னா நானும் எங்க அப்பாவும் அதை பத்தி பேசல. எங்க அப்பா இஸ் சேயிங் டு பெரியவா, நாங்க 2 பேரும் இதை பத்தி பேசிக்கல, பல மாசங்களாச்சு பேசி சந்திச்சு. இப்பெல்லாம் கிருஷ்ணன் தான் அவரு தாத்தாவுக்கு சாப்பாடு காலம்பரியும் சாயங்காலமும் கொண்டு போறான். ஆனா நான் இன்னும் பெரியவர்கிட்ட பேசல. Then Periva became a little serious. சரி, உன் உத்தேசம் என்ன? My father was kind of dumbfounded and was coming up with some inaudible sound. Acharya helped him. சரி போகட்டும், என்ன பெரிசா தடபுடல் பண்ற உத்தேசம் இருக்கா? My father sounded defensive and opened up with great hesitation. Acharya encouraged him to talk. Appa said that he has 5 sisters and 6 brothers and all their families with a bunch of children whose families, other families, extended families and their sambandhis and immediate extended families will all add up to about 200 people. And Appa was wondering whether he could ask Andavan Ashram for help with a free venue, GR Matam. And Periva stopped. Raghava, nirthu. கல்யாணம் தடபுடலா பண்றதே ஆடம்பரம் தண்ட செலவு. Listen to me, these are the words of Periva. I have written down my diary. கல்யாணம் தடபுடலா பண்றதே ஆடம்பரம் தண்ட செலவு. பூணல் போடுறதுக்கு நீ சொல்றபடி பார்த்தா வைதிக காரியம் விடாது. இவனுக்கு வேதத்தியனம் ஆரம்பிக்கிறதுக்காக போட வேண்டிய பூணல் அது. அந்த பூணல் போடுறதுக்கு நீ சொல்றபடி பார்த்தா உன்னண்ட பணம் அவ்வளவு இருக்கா? நீ அவ்வளவு பெரிய பணக்காரனா? இருந்தாலும் அப்படி பணம் இருந்தாலும் அப்படி ஒரு வெட்டி செலவு பண்ணணுமா? நிச்சயமா உங்ககிட்ட அவ்வளவு பணம் இருக்காது. ஏன்னா என்கிட்ட சொல்லியிருப்பேன், கடன் வாங்கி பட்டாட்டோப்பம் எல்லாம் தேவையா? கொஞ்சம் யோசி. ஆனா உன் தோப்பனா இருக்காரு, அவர் மெத்த சாஸ்திரம் எல்லாம் படிச்சவர், அவரை குத்தம் சொல்லல. அவரை மீறி நீ எதுவும் செய்யப்படாது, அதுவும் நான் நன்னா புரிஞ்சுக்கிறேன். எதுக்கு சொல்ல வந்தேன்னாக்க, அவரண்டியே போய் நீ காலில் விழலாம், பித்ருவாக்கியப்படி செய்யு. ஆனா அவ அபிலாஷைகள்லாம் கொஞ்சம் மனசுலையும் கேட்டுண்டு உன் அபிலாஷையும் சொல்லு. நான் சொல்றது உனக்கு சரின்னு பட்டா உங்க அப்பாட்ட போய் சொல்லு, இந்த மாதிரி ரொம்ப ஆடம்பரமா பண்றதா இல்ல, சுஷ்கமா பண்றேன் அப்படின்னு சொல்லி நான் சொன்ன சமாச்சாரத்தையும் சமாச்சாரம் யோஜனை பண்ணாம ரொம்ப அப்படி தயங்காம அவர் என்னதான் சொல்றாருன்னு ஒரு நட போய் கேட்டுட்டு வாங்க. Why don't you go to your father? He's a great man, very well read, person of eminent shastra, the scholarly shastras and all, he knows very well. I'm not asking you to violate the father-son's trust and relationship, but my feeling is, first of all, you don't have that much money. If at all you have that money, that was a total waste of money, and this is only dambam. It was just only showing off. That's not necessary. And the very purpose of Upanayanam or Brahmopadesham is totally lost when you make this into an exhibition and a fanfare. This was the summary of Periva's very firm or a stern advice to my father. From when we got into the bus, we just left the place, we got into the bus until we reached home, Appa was very tense and grim-faced, not knowing what to do apparently. I was just an observer and a 12-year-old with very little or maybe little understanding of family politics and nuances. He was talking to my mother for a while, with all of us pretending not to know what was going on, but my sisters were asking me in a hush-hush fashion to me because they knew that I went and came back, and then Appa started talking. So he said, "What happened? What happened in the place when you met Periva?" Such is the family discipline and dynamics that we dare not even show our head to know what's happening. The next few days were not comforting. My father took me to Tata's home in Varsanadi Street, near Parsali Temple, where Tata used to occupy the whole first floor with the rest of the family, consisting of 2 of my uncles and 2 aunts living downstairs. Tata did Kalakshepam because he was a couple of times summoned to take over the Chinnandavan position. He didn't become Chinnandavan at this time when I'm narrating it. He used to do Kalakshepam on the open terrace with a thatched cover for summer. There used to be about 20-25 scholars who would frequently attend to learn Brahmasutra Bhashyam of Ramanuja and attend the Kalakshepam by going direct through the side stairs. I was the one who used to carry food. The food used to go only from our home. My mother, his eldest daughter-in-law, cooked with dedication and packed morning and evening, and I delivered personally. I was the only conduit or communication with the whole family. With the rest of the family, he was practically having a Kashtamanam. Maybe he had a great desire in me, some plans which I really disappointed, because I'll come to that later. At least to my remembrance, since I was 10 years old, I've been doing the routine. He was living the life of an angry monk, Vanaprastham of a very unusual sort, with little communication with folks that lived downstairs or elsewhere. This is not the time for that family story or his disappointments. Suffice to say that my father's job was not easy. Just the two of us, father and son, visited him, and after standing in hesitation for about 15 minutes until I finished serving Tata the lunch, and until after I finished all the routine, including washing the utensils and all that, he looked like the military hard rock, but my father was in great discomfort. Finally, the topic came, and Tata had a budget about 300 people, all extended family to be invited, and Appa listened for the most part and did not give any answer, yes or no. We went back to Periyava. He smiled as we entered the resting quarters of Periyava. He asked, "Enna Raghava, Periya list இல்லையா?" எத்தனை பேர்? ஆமா, 300 பேர். உங்ககிட்ட எவ்வளவு கடன் இல்லாம இருக்கு, இதுக்குன்னு எவ்வளவு வச்சுட்டு இருக்க? Appa says, about 500 rupees. Then if you have to call 300 பேரை கூப்பிடணும்னால் 2 நாளைக்கு எல்லா பெரிய பண்டிகை மாதிரி பண்ணணும்னா மொத்தம் எவ்வளவு ஆச்சு? 2000 ரூபாய் ஆகுமா, 3000 ரூபாய் ஆகுமா? ஆர் யூ கோயிங் டு டிலே த சுப கர்மா? இது ரொம்ப சுபமான விஷயம் இது. ஏன்னா அவன் பின்னாடி எல்லாம் புண்ணிய கர்மா பண்றதுக்கு இது ஆதாரம். வேதத்தியனம் ஆரம்பிக்கணும். Is it not that your father was disappointed that after him no one else did Adhyanam, and that is why he wants your son to start Vedadhyanam soonest? You should have convinced him. Ama, that's why he went to Tembarandan Swami and Korapatundar. Periva said, உனக்கு ஆட்சேபம் என்னன்னா, மடத்திலேயே வைகாசியில 108 குழந்தைகளுக்கு பிரம்மோபதேசம் நடக்க போறது. யாரால பணம் கொடுக்க முடியுமோ அவ கொடுக்கலாம். யார் முடியலையோ அழகா வந்து புனல் போட்டு போலாம். உங்ககிட்ட 500 ரூபாய் இருக்குன்னு சொன்னேன் இல்லையா, அதை கொடுத்துடும். மடத்துல கொடுத்துட்டு ஒன்னால 10 பசங்க ஆதாயம் அடையட்டுமே. ஆம்டால அழிச்சுன்னு வரலாம், 2 சகோதரிகளையும் ஒரு தம்பியே அழிச்சுன்னு வரலாம், வேற யாரும் படாது. அதுதான் சம்பிரதாயம், உனக்கே தெரியும். இந்த வெள்ளி பூனல் தங்க பூனல் இதெல்லாம் கூட கிடையாது, தெரிஞ்சுக்கோராகவா. Of course, manager gave a much longer list of discipline how we had to conduct ourselves. Acharya continued in that conversation. வேதம் படிச்ச 108 வாத்தியார், ஸ்ரௌதிகள், ஸ்மார்த்தர்கள். இங்க ஸ்மார்த்தர்களுக்கு பின்னாடி ஒரு டெஃபினேஷன் சொல்றாரு, அனதர் செஷன்ல அது சொல்றேன். ஸ்ரௌதிகள், ஸ்மார்த்தர்கள், வைஷ்ணவ பௌரோஹிதா எல்லாரும் வந்து நடத்தி தர போறா. 5 போஷகால் செலவெல்லாம் ஏத்துக்கிறான். அப்பா தலையாட்டினார். இப்ப தலையாட்டிட்டு எங்கிட்ட இருக்கிற மரியாதையினால அதுக்கார்ட்ட சமாதானம் சொல்லிட்டு வா, ஒரு முறை தலையாட்டிட்டு போகாதே, 2 நாளைக்குள்ள வந்து பணம் கட்டிட்டு ஓட்டுக்க போறானா இல்லையான்னு சொல்லிட்டு போ. இல்லைனாக்க கொஞ்சம் அவகாசம் வேணும் உங்க அப்பாவை கன்வின்ஸ் பண்றதுக்குன்னா உன் இஷ்டம். ஆனா தெரிஞ்சுக்கோ, இதனால ஒரு சின்ன பூகம்பம் வெடிக்கலாம், உங்க ஆத்துல பகிர்கிப்பு நடக்கலாம், குடும்பத்துல உறவுகள்ல பெரிய சலசலப்பு ஏற்படலாம். எல்லாத்துக்கும் நீ தயாரான்னு உன்னை கேட்டுண்டு அதுக்கப்புறம் மடத்துக்கு வந்து மேனேஜர்கிட்ட சொல்லு. நீ வந்து சொல்லலைன்னா எனக்கு புரியும், விட்டுடு அப்படின்னா. There was a mini earthquake, boycott, many repercussions which just started, but that which continued for years, that will be for some other time. Definitely I will say in another session when I have some time on this. My mother was patient, calm, pliant, and rarely ever questioned any decision of my father. At times, I used to wonder or feel a bit irritable as to how someone can completely erase oneself like that. But different times, different dynamics, and the trust between companions. Many of you who are my age or my era can easily appreciate how what our parents faced and what our mothers went through to maintain a harmonious family cohesion. Her only silent unhappiness was that she could not invite her own mother and brother, etc. But that was a rule for everyone, so we couldn't violate. The most important day came. Periva walked the whole lines of Vatus, blessed each one of them. Mothers of other Vatus did the Bhiksha for me and vice versa. Amma did it for many other Korandagal. New families were made on that day. We made a lot of acquaintances and friends. And I saw both my mother and father having some tears at the corner of their eyes. I don't know what. I assumed a number of things. To me, it was a strange feeling. I didn't know what was happening to me. An excitement that there were more than 100 boys in lines and their parents. The pandal had about 1,000 people, including the families of those boys, the patrons, the priests, and the mud staff, etc. We were told that such a large event had not happened for some time. It doesn't happen yearly. It was one of a kind event only happening in Madras after several years, while all those smaller numbers used to be regularly initiated annually elsewhere. The aftermath had many dramas for months and years to follow. The family squabbles, how father felt about the boycott by his brothers and sisters, how some of the kith and kin, uncles and aunts named the event Osipunal, how my parents handled the aftermath, how I handled the humiliation at school from the classmates, and finally, it all actually culminated into Acharya's Upadeshams. When I was dull in that context, actually he gave extensive Upadesham on many aspects, starting from the Brahmopadesham, my disappointment, so much of advice was given to me in 2, 3 sets of sitting. The lessons that the incident taught then, and in the years and decades to follow, how to stand in situations like that, which to a great extent gave me the armor or shock absorber to handle any challenge or humiliation in the years to follow. I am 74. I'm talking about a situation when I was 12. You can imagine how I benefited from minor earthquakes like that in the family. Number of situations have happened also later, but Periyava was always there to guide, and his Matru Vatsalyam was amazing. He took me by the side. He never felt that I'm one of the thousands of people standing in line. That is why I feel if there is some privilege which I would like to feel really happy about, conferred by my parents, it was they took me to Periyava. And that is the Upanayanam. Upanayanam is taking you to the Acharya. They did that Upanayanam to me. They actually did the transiting me to Acharya. Otherwise, I would have been a useless fellow. Maybe making money, making some big job or big title, or etc. But I won't have the happiness of having waded through life, tsunamis and all that, very comfortably because Periva was always there to guide. And even now he guides. He spoke through me. And I thank you all for listening, even though it is a lot more personal and much less about Periva. Otherwise, there will be situations in the coming sessions where I'll be talking about specific incidents. Those incidents will be not relating to my life, but what I have observed in Pradosham lectures, when people used to come and prostrate before him, how Periva used to react to questions, what was the Upadesham he did, not only for them, just like Tyagaraja in Pancharatanam. He gave Upadesham for the rest of the world. Some of these personal witnessing is something remarkable I can never forget. Hara Hara Shankara, Jaya Jaya Shankara, Hara Hara Shankara, Jaya Jaya Shankara. பிரிவா போற்றி பிரிவாளுக்கு பரிபூர்ணமான சாஷ்டாங்கமான நமஸ்காரம்.
नालिकनिकाश पदाहृदाभ्याम् नानाविमोहादि निवारिकाभ्याम् नमज्जनाभीष्ट ततिव्रताभ्याम् नमो नमः श्री गुरुपादुकाभ्याम् नमो नमः श्री गुरुपादुकाभ्याम् गुरुपादुकाभ्याम्